We face all kinds of adversity in life. Unfortunately, we have no control over what life brings us. There are personal crises such as illness, loss of a loved one, job loss, and financial instability. There is the shared reality of tragic events in the news, such as terrorist attacks, natural disasters, or pandemic. To move forward, we have to learn to cope with and to walk through challenging life experiences. We should be resilient. Resilience is what gives us the psychological strength to cope with stress and hardship. But what exactly does this mean, being psychologically resilient? And how do we know if we are resilient enough? That's what I am talking about today. I will also explain how you can train it. I'm a healthcare psychologist and therapist, and I make videos on psychology and mental health topics. In its most basic sense, resilience can be defined as the ability to bounce back. It's what we do when we face disappointment, defeat, and failure. But instead of letting things keep us down, we get back up and go on. So being resilient does not mean that people don't experience stress, emotional upheaval, and suffering. Resilience is the ability to adapt to difficult situations. Psychologists define resilience as the ability to cope with personal crises and be able to recover from them. We are all born with this skill to a greater or lesser extent, but we can also learn it and become better at it. Resilience doesn't just help you through difficulties, but the knowledge that you can take a tough time gives you a basic feeling of happiness. Those who are resilient will see setbacks and challenges as opportunities. Resilience can help protect you from various mental health conditions, such as depression and anxiety. Resilience can also help offset factors that increase the risk of mental health conditions, such as being bullied or previous trauma. If you have an existing mental health condition, being resilient can improve your coping ability. We can make ourselves more resilient by strengthening certain inequalities. It is not necessary to strengthen all qualities at once. It's better to tackle them one by one or only strengthen the ones that could use a boost. It's essential that we practice regularly. The great advantage of our brains is that we can improve it ourselves. This is called positive neuroplasticity. Neuropsychological research has shown that there are 4 regions of the brain that are associated with resilience. With targeted practice, you stimulate specific neural circuits, making them more active and stronger. This process can be compared to walking through a forest. The beaten paths become wider and easier to walk on. The more activity in these regions, the more resilient someone is. Sometimes you just have a great day. At work, everything is going well, everyone is nice to you, and your partner cooks dinner for you. These kinds of happy experiences can help you become more resilient. They form a buffer for setbacks. So the first step is to create as many happy moments as possible. You can do it by thinking about someone you love, doing something nice for someone else, and also by making a good cup of coffee or tea for yourself. What makes you even more resilient is being aware of all the good things in your life, big and small. Therefore, regularly take a few minutes of time to reflect on moments that make you happy. Ask yourself, what thoughts, sensations, emotions, and desires do you experience? If your mind wanders, focus on your breathing and then go back to the pleasant experience in your mind. We all feel helplessness from time to time. If we get sick, for example, and because of small things, a long traffic jam on the way to work, or failed birthday cake while the visitors are already on the way. Control is the opposite of helplessness and therefore an important condition for resilience. It makes us active instead of passive, so that we take the initiative and indicate direction instead of being dragged along. Research shows that some people are more prone to feeling helpless than others and thus experience less control. These people are more inclined to blame their difficulties not on chance but on their own flaws. This may have to do with their upbringing. For example, if they have often heard, "You can't do that." Yet we all prone to helplessness to some degree. It takes many experiences of control to compensate for a single experience of helplessness. Anyway, it is very important to practice a lot with what you can control. We can do this by making a conscious choice or by influencing a certain outcome. You can practice with everyday things. This way you can consciously decide whether to take salt on the table or to say or not to say something in a conversation. What matters is always being aware that you can make a choice. Even those who have limited possibilities usually succeed in doing things that give a sense of control. The less power we have, the more important it becomes to experience control inside. For example, someone who is ill can read a lot of information about the illness, which gives a sense of control. Even in situations where we can't change anything, we can experience a sense of control. After all, we determine how we think about situation and relationships. Sitting in the dental chair, you can choose to focus on a beautiful memory. Being caught in a traffic jam, you can choose to listen to nice, relaxing music. And if you have children, encourage them to develop this skill by talking about their situation and helping them make a plan for how they can react. Even when the situation seems terrible, taking realistic steps can help improve it. No matter how small these steps may be, they can improve your sense of control and resilience. Building healthy stress management habits is another effective way to increase your overall resilience. It helps to be able to think clearly and also promotes recovery after stressful events. Of course, it's not always possible to keep calm. Some situations make us scared, angry, or desperate. That's very normal. It only becomes a problem when these feelings start to control us, become chronic, affect our well-being, relationships, or work. We can find ourselves in 3 zones: red, green, and orange, just like a traffic light. The red zone is used to describe extremely heightened states of alertness and intense emotions that occur in acute stress situations. It's accompanied by emotional pain, fear, and frustration. The green zone is an area of comfortable feelings, such as happiness, excitement, and relaxation. In the green zone, we recover from stress and recharge our energy. Many of us experience chronic mild to moderate stress and live in the orange zone most of the time. They recover somewhat after a stress peak, but not completely. It's important to learn to be more in the green zone by finding inner peace. We cannot change our rushed society, but we can regularly practice deep relaxation. You can start by, for example, taking a few minutes every day to relax. A good way is simply to make your exhalations longer than your inhalations. When you breathe in, your heart rate increases. When you exhale, it falls. Just 2 minutes of deep breathing with longer exhalations can make a difference. When your heart rate slows, the feelings of stress reduces. If you practice this several times a day, at some point it will happen naturally. Self-hypnosis, mindfulness, meditation, yoga, or prayer are also good stress management techniques. Anyone who has ever been disappointed in a friendship or has felt a pain in a relationship tends to build an emotional wall. Intimacy makes you vulnerable, yet we desperately need intimate relationships. Building strong positive relationships with loved ones and friends can provide you with needed support and acceptance in good and bad times. By remaining autonomous in relationships, which means being yourself and making your own choices, intimacy deepens. If you know who you are and what you want, you can also deal well with the wishes of others and with the emotional intensity of relationships. But healthy relationships gives us a sense of security, increased self-esteem and confidence. Autonomy and intimacy feed off each other and thus provide more resilience. It is sometimes difficult to remain autonomous in relationships. For example, with your partner or parents. In those moments, say to yourself, I decide what's right for me. I don't have to agree with you. Or I am different from you. And that's fine. In order to successfully overcome adversity, good problem-solving skills, positive self-image, and optimism are also important. Make every day meaningful. Do something that gives you a sense of accomplishment and purpose every day. Think of how you have coped with difficulties in the past. Consider the skills and strategies that help you through difficult times. I hope you enjoyed this video and learned something new. If you did, give it a thumbs up, it really helps the channel a lot. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button and the notification bell before you go. Thank you very much for staying with me. See you next time.